details. We'll bring you those as they come to hand. Our next guest is the State Opposition spokesman on the cost of living, Michael Gidley. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tom. Nice to be with you.
Now, the cost of living, is made up of a whole bunch of things, from mortgage rates to rents to power prices to gas prices to internet to food to petrol, etc., etc., etc. Your job, should you get back into government, is to what? Make all these things cheaper?
Well, we certainly think state governments have a role to play in reducing cost of living pressures, and that's why this morning Matthew Guy and I launched the Costwatch initiative, which is about giving Victorians the opportunity to have their say firsthand on the cost of living pressures that are hitting their household, their family or their business.
All right, have your say. 96900 693. Matthew Gidley, State Opposition spokesman, is here and he's listening. But okay, cost of living, as I said, is made up of a whole bunch of things. Now, Ricky Muir's come out stupidly, in my view, and said, right, I want to do something about petrol prices, when the reality is he will not be able to do something about petrol prices. If we were to look at the main things that are putting pressure on people's wallets, utility prices, rates, possibly not petrol at the moment, but it's still there, rents, the price of foods, educational costs, those sorts of things, what could you, if you were in government, do about it?
Well, the first thing in any problem is to acknowledge that there is a problem, and there's no doubt that cost of living pressures are taking their toll across Victoria. And what we launched this morning with the Costwatch initiative is the opportunity for Victorians to have their say in a couple of ways. Firstly, on the website, and if I can give you that website address, it's www.costwatch.com.au, and people can go to that website and they can tell us about their personal experiences on cost of living pressures. The other way in which they can do that is that I will be leading a listening tour across Victoria with the Costwatch billboard. So if people want to chat in person, they'll be able to do that. You asked me in terms of what are some of the cost of living pressures.
But so just so I've got that straight, so you've got a website, costwatch.com.au. You're going to have a tour around the state. You and Matthew Guy, maybe in one of the, like a caravan or something, and listen to what people have to say. But I don't think it'll be difficult for you to get an idea of cost of living. But once you have that idea, what will you do with the information?
Yeah. So once we have that information, and we certainly think that listening to people is the first step in solving any problem, and then secondly, taking that feedback and putting it into solutions to reduce cost of living pressures. And I'll be honest with you, Tom, I don't say that we have all the answers, far from it, but what Matthew and I indicated this morning and what the Costwatch initiative is about is acknowledging the problem, giving Victorians the chance to give us their feedback as members of Parliament so that we can work for them to put solutions forward to reduce their cost of living pressure. But it's certainly about giving people the chance to have their say and then us acting on it.
All right, now, we'll hear what people have got to say in a moment, 96900 693. But aren't you worried, for example, another big issue that affects cost of living is the exchange rate. We import so many of the consumer goods that people consume on a regular basis, and yet, really, let's be honest, there's nothing a state government can do about the exchange rate. Now, I've got some ideas. You can chuck them out if you like, but if someone buys a house, there's the price of the house, let's just say for argument's sake it's $500,000, and then the state government says, thank you very much, we'll have another $25,000 in stamp duty on top of that. So would you, for example, and this is a tax that the state government imposes, would you consider cutting stamp duty to make houses a little bit cheaper?
Well, what we certainly said is that we're going to look at every aspect as to what we can do to reduce cost of living pressures based on the feedback that we've received. But I'm not here this afternoon to announce tax policy or other things. What I can say to you is that we are out there, we will listen, and we are working as hard as we can with that feedback to put in place solutions to reduce cost of living pressures. And on the housing front, I'm sure that there will be some aspects there where we look at housing affordability, but there's not one magic bullet, there's not one silver bullet, but the first step is acknowledging the problem, listening, and giving people a chance to have their say.
Okay, now in 2001 or 2002, I remember the Queensland state government under I think it was Beattie back then, said, righto, the evil federal government is now putting a GST on petrol, and so we're going to give it back. And so for about a decade, that they essentially refunded the GST on petrol, and it cost the state government of Queensland billions of dollars just to make petrol 10 cents a litre cheaper. Would you consider something like that?
Well, we take the feedback from Victorians and look at all of that feedback when we're putting forward our solutions. So that's what really, as I said, the Costwatch initiative is about, is giving people the opportunity to have their say and then looking for solutions to put forward to reduce cost of living pressures.
All right, here's one more before we go to calls. About 15 months ago, on my birthday, I was picked up for speeding. They'd lowered the speed limits in an area I had not driven through in a while, and I got fined about $400. That put a real dent in my wallet that weekend. Would you consider lowering speeding fines?
Well, Tom, I'll take that feedback as you, as a Victorian, wanting to see that cost of living pressure reduced, and you're just as entitled as anybody else to put that forward. I'll take that back to the Parliament and back to the Costwatch initiative.
All right, Michael, good afternoon.
G'day, how you going?
Good, Michael.
Yeah, I guess, I'm married with 2 young kids, and between us we've got 2 new cars. Like, we find every year the rego's going up, 700, 720, 750, times that by your 2 cars, plus your full insurance. You're looking at 3.5, nearly $4,000 a year just to put the cars on the road.
The solution's obvious. Just give one of your children to the state government to raise on your behalf.
Well, you know what I mean? Like, it's, like, at what point does the rego stop going up every year? I mean...
Michael Gidley, rego on cars?
Yeah, Michael, I understand where you're coming from. Can I ask you a question? If there was the capacity to spread the payments of the registration over the calendar year, would that make it easier for you?
For us specifically, no. Like, we're happy just to pay it at once. Like, we budget every year to pay it in the one go, in the one bill, because we know it's going to come. But it's just every year, it's going up $20, $30, and all of a sudden, a couple of years' time, it'll be $800 for rego. Like, I'm 32.
I think it's almost there now, Michael.
Well, yeah. When I first started driving, it was $450, and that was 12, 14 years ago. It's getting up there. It's going to be $1,000 in a few years. Just for
well, yes, you can extrapolate. All right, Michael, thank you for that. That's on the list. Michael Gidley, State Opposition spokesman on the cost of living, is going to stick around, and we'll take more of your calls, 96900 693. And, of course, if you're listening to us in Colac, Albury Wodonga or Gippsland via 3CS 2AY or 1242 AM, you can have your say too, because, of course, the state government is the government for the entire state of Victoria. 13 13 32, it's 18 past 4.
Neil Mitchell.
Good morning. Hey, what's going on here? I just got a message. There's a snake plague in Melbourne, particularly out in the southeast, the Cranbourne area.
His questions.
Is there a bit of a snake plague going on? Oh, call already.
Your calls.
I went to move my wheelie bin and it jumped out from behind it and latched onto my ankle.
It all starts at 8:30.
You go to get the bin and suddenly there's a tiger snake wrapped around your leg with its fangs in you. Oh.
Neil Mitchell, 3AW 693. Go back to work and school with Harvey Norman and 24 months interest-free on Apple Mac. Yes, get the Apple Mac you want now with zero interest, no deposit and no payments until January 2018. Approved applicants only. Minimum financed amount $1,300. Interest applies if you do not comply with terms and conditions. Fees and exclusions apply. See website for details. Apple available online and in selected stores. 24 months interest-free on Apple Mac at Harvey Norman now. Hurry, limited time only.
Go! The Big Bash semi-finals are here.
Unbelievable!
And tonight, the Adelaide Strikers clash with Sydney's Thunder in a must-win match for both. Game on! The Big Bash semi-finals, 7:30 tonight on 10.
Did you know RACV repairs and replaces damaged windscreens for anyone, anywhere in Metro Melbourne? Plus, if you're an RACV member, you could save. For quality glass and workmanship, rely on someone you can trust. Call 13RACV today for a quote.
There's a new website and free app for Victoria's premier food, wine and fun region. Book Yarra Valley is the ultimate guide to the magnificent Yarra Valley. It's fast and easy to operate, giving you everything you need to see and do in the Yarra Valley, less than an hour's drive from Melbourne. Accommodation, restaurants, weddings, markets, cellar doors, breweries and things to do. All of your needs in one stop. Reliable, local, perfect. BookYarraValley.net.
You've probably heard about Jaguar's new sports sedan, the all-new XE. Need a reminder? It's the one made from lightweight aluminium, the one with the high-performance engine, the one that sounds like this. Sounds expensive, right? No. The Jaguar XE starts at just $65,990 drive away. Oh yes, you can drive a Jaguar. Drive away price of $65,990 for Jaguar XE20T Prestige at participating dealers.
Switch to Dodo Power and Gas and get an incredible 30% off Dodo's electricity and 20% off Dodo's gas market usage rates. Just bundle and pay on time with no lock-in contracts. Call 13-DODO or visit a Dodo kiosk. On auto payment plan excludes some locations and meter types.
Right, step back everyone. We've sent in our best man.
Alright, I'm approaching the device.
Be careful. Anything could set it off.
Now I can see the hot plate and I've located the gas bottle. Doesn't look like it's been used in some time. Okay, I'm putting soapy water on the gas hose to the barbecue.
Do you see any bubbles?
No bubbles. Repeat, there are no bubbles. It's safe.
Okay, you're all clear to barbecue.
Before you use your gas barbecue, check your connections and use soapy water to look for gas leaks. Remember to look before you cook. For more tips, visit esv.vic.gov.au. A message from Energy Safe Victoria, authorised by the Victorian Government, Melbourne.
Drive with Tom Elliott, live from the Australian Open, thanks to Crown Melbourne. Satisfy your appetite with their weekday value meals. 3AW 693.
22 after 4, the Drive program brought to you for Supreme Caravans. Life is good when you're in a Supreme. We're talking about the cost of living with the shadow opposition spokesman on this very issue. 96900 693. I speak, of course, of Michael Gidley. Joe, what would you like to say?
Yeah, look, I have two cars and a house, and I just love having to pay stamp duty on everything for my.
It's good, isn't it? Yeah.
And I've tried to do some research on it, and you just can't seem to get to the crux of what the actual stamp duty actually covers.
Well, you know what, Joe, can I tell you? In the old days, it's purely revenue raising. When it came to insurance contracts or a car contract or a house contract, the state government would approve the contract by stamping it. Matthew Gidley, is there a more ridiculous tax?
So Joe's raised the issue of stamp duty and on motor vehicles as well as properties, Joe. That's obviously a big impost on the household budget. I'll take that feedback back as part of the Costwatch initiative. You'd like to see that reduced?
Correct.
Okay, thank you for taking the time to read.
Joe raises a good point, though, because one of the issues we have in Australia about mobility of labour is that people won't pack up, say, from Melbourne and say, oh, there's a job in South Australia, I'll go there. Because if they own a house, the costs of selling a house here and buying another house, you dust hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes and all that sort of thing. Whereas if you didn't have stamp duty, or if you had a land tax that just applied on a yearly basis, that might be a bit easier.
Yeah, stamp duty is a big impost, there's no question about that. And I know for myself, we run two cars in my household, and you pay stamp duty on your rego, and I understand that that's an issue, and I'll take it back to the feedback.
But surely, as a politician, we're paying for those cars for you, aren't we?
No? I don't run a state government car.
Oh.
We run two private cars, two Ford Territories built in Victoria, and I pay for those myself.
Norm, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Tom. Listen, mate, I hope the opposition takes this serious.
Well, so do I.
My two problems are motor registration, which is a lot of argument about it now, I believe, and also council rates. Now, if you get them within 2 months, it's over $2,000 worth of problems which you've got to find to pay for it.
Well, now Michael, can I ask you, Norm has raised a very good point about council rates. Now, the Andrews government has moved to cap the annual increase of council rates to inflation. Could you go a step further and maybe tell the councils to cut their rates?
Well, the feedback I've had from both local residents and other residents across the state is they are concerned at the level of council rates, but also council taxes and charges. So those things that aren't covered in the rate capping area. So, Norm, from your perspective, you would like to see a reduction in those council rates, and are there any other costs that are hitting your household budget that you would like to see us examine?
No, I find this, after listening to people around my area and all this is the main culprits. The state government, I believe, is bringing in motor registration where you can pay it 6 monthly off, which would help tremendously to space your bills out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, Norm, I've heard that too, and I think it makes a lot of sense. I mean, you can actually pay your rates on a quarterly basis, if memory serves me correctly. Norm, it's on the list. Stephen, you're the lucky last. Go ahead.
G'day. Yeah, am I on, am I?
Yes, Stephen.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah. Look, what a lot of waffle. Now, if you actually get into government...
How dare you?
No, if you get into government, how are we ever going to pay off the state government's debt without increase? We've had a 3.5% average increase in wages for every public servant, so that's going to put up the cost of living. We've got the 1.1 billion wasted on the east-west link, plus everything else. There's no way we can put down the cost of living. Cost of living is going to have to go up, if anything.
Michael Gidley, Stephen is a cynic. How do you respond?
Look, I understand your concerns there, Stephen, because there are cost pressures on the Victorian budget as a result of that $1 billion plus payout for the East-West Link and a number of other things. I understand that and I acknowledge that. But I'm also, and so is Matthew Guy, determined to do everything we can to put downward pressure on the cost of living for families, for households and for small and medium-sized businesses. So whilst I acknowledge there are those challenges, we're not going to raise the white flag. We are working as hard as we can to put that downward pressure on. I've taken from your call that there's some things that you'd like us to look at. I will do that, and we'll keep working to achieve that lower cost of living.
And of course, if you have some more suggestions, you can go to the internet, costwatch.com.au. Michael Gidley, when you went to school, did you study any Greek mythology?
No, I didn't do Greek.
Okay, there was a character called Sisyphus. And the term Sisyphean task comes from this, and his job was to roll a giant rock all the way up a hill and roll it and roll it and roll it. And when he got to the top, it would just roll it back down the other side. Like it was a fruitless task. I admire you for taking on the job of trying to cut the cost of living here in Victoria. When and if you get back into government, I look forward to talking with you again to see how it's going.
Thanks for your time, Tom.
Michael Gidley, State Opposition Spokesman on the cost of living at 27 after 4.
A 3AW Summer of Tennis update. For Apia, because your experience deserves more.